Hey, everybody, this is Lucas DePrilli from the state newspaper. I cover education, USC, and the Richland County School Districts. I'm here today joined by Dr. Baron Davis, the Richland 2 superintendent. Thank you, Dr. Davis, for taking the time to join us today. We are going to be taking questions from the audience, and we're going to be asking questions of just about school and returning to school. Can you guys hear me?
I hear you now.
Sorry about that. Okay, so Dr. Davis, just to start off, what is the first day of school going to look like? So far, I know it can change, but what do you think the first day of school is going to look like when students come back in the fall?
Regardless of when students come back in the fall, I'm sure one of the things that's going to be totally different will be that we will have to have social distancing guidelines and procedures in place. And so you won't see your normal school building set up in its current design. I'm sure there'll be things like shields, requirements of stations for sanitizing. Classroom will be redesigned in a sense where you will have probably less desks in a classroom. The way we transition from class to class, enter and exit buildings, all those things are probably going to look different, look very different from what we traditionally have experienced in the K through 12 space. And so we're gonna have to bring a lot of patience with us as we transition into kind of the post-emergence of schools in the COVID-19 era.
Thank you for that, Dr. Davis. There's been some talk, especially at the Accelerate Ed meetings, about the potential to split classes between online and in person. Being one of the ideas that was proposed would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Group A of students would be in class, and Group B would be online Tuesday, Thursday, and then they'd switch. Is there a chance that we're going to see that in Richland too?
There's definitely a chance that we're going to see that. We have a task force that we put together. Our task force is made up of about 100 different individuals throughout our school district and our school community. That task force is looking at safety, operations, academics, and communications. It's the four main areas of the task force. As we're looking at how schools will look when we return back to school, we're considering and exploring what the virtual format would look like. Secondarily, we're exploring what we call a blended learning model, which is exactly what you explained. It's a hybrid of brick and mortar and virtual. And then, of course, the traditional model. Even when we come back in the traditional model, chances are, in order to accommodate the requirements of social distancing, it will be very difficult to have all students in school at the same time. We're exploring the idea of what does it look like to have our K through 8 students report to the various 40 schools in the school district and have the virtual platforms just for high school students. That's not necessarily what we're doing, but we're exploring as many different models as we can in order to provide our students with a premier educational experience while keeping them as safe as we possibly can.
Thank you for that. So any idea when we can start to see some of these plans more solidified? Are we talking July, maybe early August? Are these going to evolve as the school year goes on?
No, I think we'll have a decision made prior to that. I wouldn't want to spring anything on our parents that late. But a lot of it most of it will start being revealed and shared once the Accelerated Ed Task Force has completed their task of providing us with the recommendations on what things or how things should look when we return back to school. So I will provide our board with an update prior to providing an update, and it's to the public, but shortly after that, we'll be getting that out. So I'm anticipating the end of June, the very 1st of July, we should start being able to share more specifics about what our plan should look like. Our plan will look like.
Thank you for that. One of the major issues throughout education always has been for the last, however many years, but is especially prominent now is the issue of busing. How will coronavirus, do you think, change busing in Richland too?
Oh, it's definitely going to impact the way we transport students to our schools. We've run a mock of one of our elementary schools. It's just one of our larger elementary school, Bethel Hanbury, for example, in the Blythewood community of our school district. And in that mock bus route, for the students who ride the buses that attend Bethel Hanbury, placing one student on a seat on every other seat on that bus, it would take us 2 hours to run routes to get all of our students to schools. And that's just one elementary school. We have 24 elementary schools, 20 traditional elementaries and 4 centers that we bus students to. So just imagine that, and that's not transporting, that's not a lot. We hadn't got to the point where we're transporting middle and high school students. So 2 hours one way. So that's 4 hours dedicated to just busing students back and forth to school.
Oh, wow. Is there any chance parents who are able to, would be asked to drop their students off if they can?
I'm sure we would ask that question. However, I don't know. Most parents, if they can take their sons and daughters to school, they already do so. But many of the students, their only way of getting to school is via the bus. And so parents have to report back to work and things of that nature. And then they will then be expecting their students to be bused to ride the school bus.
So to change gears a little bit, one of the issues that's come up with coronavirus has been how to handle standardized testing, especially as some students are receiving a better education than others through virtual learning, just because some parents maybe work 2 jobs. Some parents may be able to stay home and teach their kids and help them out, especially some of the younger kids. How do you see standardized testing unfolding this year at Richland 2?
Well, the standardized testing that we take is either state mandated or federally mandated summative assessments. So this year, our state superintendent asked for a waiver and we received a waiver to not have to participate in the mandatory end of the year standardized testing. And I am anticipating and hoping that waiver is also extended to next year, because we have no idea what has been the impact of COVID-19 on students' academic growth and our teachers' abilities to provide that high quality educational experience that parents have come to expect in our school district. And so I'm anticipating that will all continue to, that waiver hopefully will be asked for, which I'm sure will be. I know a recommendation for it has been suggested. That we get an opportunity to have another year where we don't have the end of the year testing, because we don't know if we're going to start in August. We don't know when we're going to start, and we don't know if there's going to be another wave of COVID-19 that will require us to close schools again.
A lot of reports lately have suggested that the number of cases in South Carolina is rising. If there is a second wave, like you had mentioned, of coronavirus, is there a chance that come late fall semester that schools could close down or go online, similar to what they did at the end of spring semester?
I'd imagine that we would have to. Right now, we have more confirmed positive cases today than we had when we initially closed schools in March. And so I don't know about the reports. I've been following the DHEC website daily. And looking at the numbers and keeping track of the positive cases confirmed. Not only are the cases, there are more positive cases, but the percent of people tested in the last round of testings has also increased. And so our responsibility at this point, as I've shared in our district, is we're not bracing to return back to the traditional, normal school environment after COVID-19. Our responsibility at this point is to be on the offensive. How do we improve our educational experiences based on what we know possibilities that may exist as it relates to COVID-19? So our virtual infrastructure needs to be stronger. So we're working to improve that. Our teacher capacity to teach in a brick and mortar as well as in a virtual format needs to be strengthened. And so we're working on professional development for our teachers now so that they can pivot to going back and forth between virtual, brick and mortar, or do a combination of the blended learning model. So we want to build teacher capacity in that aspect as well. We want to make sure that we'll be able to provide social emotional the social emotion aspect of what schools provide for our students, that we'll continue to be able to do that and strengthen that capacity as well. So we're not trying to just brace for the blow of COVID just to return back to normal. We're trying to accelerate and put ourselves in a better position so that if we do have to close schools again for whatever reason, whether it's COVID, hurricanes, any other type of outbreak, whatever we can flip a switch and seamlessly transition back to a virtual format.
Speaking of teachers, what sort of feedback have you heard from teachers and faculty about returning back in the fall?
We actually did conduct a survey that we shared with our students, middle and high school students, with our parents and with our teachers. And I think, like all teachers across the state and across the country, teachers want to be back in school with their students, but they also want to make sure that they are safe and that students are safe. And so there are some teachers who a percentage of our teachers do have some sense of apprehension about whether or not we can provide that type of high quality educational experience, a premier experience for our students in a safe environment. And then there are some who are anxious and ready to come back. We have to, we're in the process of disaggregating that data right now and using that to inform our decision making before we formalize any decision. We're using that now. There is some differences between how teachers feel and how parents feel. But as parents are also concerned about sending their sons and daughters back to school right now amidst of COVID-19. And these numbers, that data was taken prior to some of the spikes that we've seen in South Carolina as we've been reopening the state.
One thing I've noticed that University of South Carolina is doing is they are buying up a lot of PPE and masks, but they're asking everyone who has one to bring their own masks. Will Richland 2 do something similar where you'll have some PPE, but also be asking anyone who has a mask or anyone who has gloves or hand sanitizer to bring their own to not deplete the supply?
That would definitely be something that will be considered. I hadn't made a final decision on that or not. I don't anticipate necessarily prohibiting anyone to bring their own items if they choose to do so. I don't know. We already ask a lot of teachers to provide certain materials for their classrooms that are essential to learning. And now we're ask them to come to work and then also asking them to provide their own PPEs to do the job that I'm requiring them to report to do. I'm not sure if that's a direction we're going, particularly even when it comes to my students. Some students don't have the access and the resources to purchase those things in bulk and volume to have on a day-to-day basis. So we have to come to some sort of understanding of what the expectation will be for PPEs. Right now, if you are reporting to work and you don't have a PPE, we are providing them for them. Face masks, we put up shields and things like that in certain spaces in our district. So that's something that we have to really consider, whether or how much of the initial supplies we will provide to teachers and then to employees, because not just teachers. We have several bus drivers, cafeteria workers, receptionists. We have several different segments of our district population that will be interacting with our students on a day-to-day basis.
So we got a question from Allison Sosa Williman. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Wants to know if there will be any changes to how teachers will be evaluated during this time.
I can't answer that question specifically, but I can say that I would imagine so. I would imagine it would have to be, but that's more of a, if there's going to be a waiver to the teacher evaluation, the teacher evaluation format that we have, I think that waiver has come from above the school districts. But I think it's going to be important to to continue to work alongside teachers and administrators together to figure out what's the best way to ensure that students are receiving premier education experience by developing appropriate tools to assess whether or not they're being effective in whatever format we're using. So I guess the long short is that I'm not really sure if there's going to be a waiver or not, but I'm confident that administrators, as they're working with teachers, aren't going to be going down the checklist of the old evaluation system saying, I didn't see this or I saw that, because that if we're in a virtual or blended format, that won't be applicable.
This same reader had a follow-up question from Allison Sosa Williman. Like I said, I think I'm pronouncing that right, but how about for high-risk staff, whether they are, or even if we can expand this to high-risk students as well, whether they have asthma, whether the staff member is older, if they're at high risk and they feel that it's dangerous for them to come and be around a large group of people, what options will they have or could they have going into next school year?
Our district is working on those options now. And so that's one of the reasons why we're trying to continue to build out our virtual format, our virtual school offerings. We've had a virtual school in place, I think, since 2000. So about 20 years now. So we're continuing to build out that virtual school and expand those virtual school options. So that they may, if need be down, that we can offer virtual options at the elementary level and the middle school level, as well as the high school level. So we would need teachers to be able to do that. And so if there's justifiable reasons why a person could not report to work, we want to try to work with them. But I can't say today that absolutely we have a complete plan in place. We're drafting these things daily and trying to consider all aspects of what it would look like if we need to return back to school in a face-to-face brick and mortar school environment. And so we're taking in all those considerations because we want our students and our faculty and staff and all our employees to feel safe. Unfortunately, there are some employees in our district, in school districts, that their work can't be done remotely at all. And if their work can't be done remotely at all, then we need to look at, what are some options that are available to us. But there are still some things that have to be accomplished.
Thank you. We have another question from JD Westmoreland about, I'd like to expand the scope of the question just a little bit. Asks about teachers with
Froze up on me.
Can you hear me, Dr. Davis?
Yes.
So you see the question on the screen. I'd like to expand this just a little bit, if you don't mind, just to, what about for any parents who have to be in the office working, not just teachers, but any parents who have to be in the office working and their students would be under, hypothetically, at home in a blended school model?
Yeah, Lucas, that's a great question. And man, I wish I had the answers to all those questions. I don't know how to send students back to school or keep students at home in a blended model learning and fix the problem of what if parents have to report to work. Like that's a huge task for one person to try to figure out how to do that. So either we're going to be in a blended learning model or we're going to be in a face-to-face virtual, face-to-face brick and mortar model. Each one of the models has its own set of issues and things that we have to take into consideration. So there is no perfect answer. And that's why I started out at the very beginning. Whatever we decide to do and whatever we decide to do it's going to take a lot of patience and understanding because it's not the traditional way that we are accustomed to having our normal routine. So the same question could be posed to, well, what if you do a split schedule? How does that impact a family if you do a split schedule? And the students in school 1 or 2 days a week. Well, if that doesn't accommodate or line up with the parents' work schedule, then how do I accommodate that family? Well, there are 28,500 plus students in our school district. It is going to be virtually impossible to come up with something that will be acceptable or beneficial to every single family. And so those can't be the things that are driving the decision-making process for school leaders. What has to be most importantly is, can we educate our students in a safe and secure way? And if we can, then let's do it. If we can't, then what is the next step to making sure they receive the education that they so rightly deserve? And how do we keep them safe, as safe as possible?
One question that I've seen come up, and I know this may not be completely up to you, but about what would sports look like? And obviously want to put this in the right context too, because it's not just extracurriculars for kids. It's, for some kids, it really gives them something to do. It's physical exercise. And for some elite athletes, it could be a way for them to try to get scholarships into college. So just to put the concept of sports in context, is just more than just for people watching it. But what do you think sports is going to look like? Like I said, I know it's not completely up to the superintendent, the board, but what do you picture sports looking like, at least starting in the fall?
Well, it's going to be difficult. I mean, someone's going to have to make the decision that it's going to be okay for contact sports. And so either we're going to have contact sports or we're not going to have contact sports. I think comparing us to major professional leagues is a different model. They operate under a different model for generating revenue. And so they have a different set of standards and reasons why they are reporting back to work. So I don't know what contact. I don't know if you can social distance and still play football. I don't know if parents are going to feel comfortable putting their sons on a field to play football, and if we can't social distance them. So I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. I know we are in the process of phasing in training, but with a very limited number of athletes at one time. I do recognize the fact that there are some challenges or obstacles as it relates to students who are elite athletes and who are trying to use their talents and their gifts to further their educations. But those are decisions that, once those decisions are made and when the parameters are shared with us, then we'll put in the guidelines and put them in place to give our students the opportunity to achieve their goal of being and continuing their athletic careers. But right now, I don't know. I have no idea what that's gonna look like, or whether or not that's gonna happen. That we're gonna have week 0 of football season come August. I don't think that's. I don't know, because I don't know where the numbers are going to be. We were projected for our numbers to go down, and they're not. And that's just being honest about it. And so then, do we then take the model of like professional sports when we're saying no spectators? Well, then that brings another set of problems as well, concerns as well. But I don't know if we're going to be able to do those types of things. Have football in the fall. I hope so, but we'll see.
Reader Shannon McKnight Goodman asks, how are you handling kids with special needs and individualized education plans?
They're being handled the same as they always have been. If there's a student who has special needs, a part of our task force, we have our chief for instructional support services on our task force in our district, and so we're trying to accommodate our students in accordance to the federal guidelines for providing services for those students. So I would say that anyone who is not receiving services, or if there's an issue, to reach out to the school principal or directly to our district office staff, and we will get the person in contact with you to make sure that those services are being provided. And we've done things where we have to do them, whether we have to do them virtually, provide the services virtually. All of our students have their devices with them at home. And so we're able to provide instruction virtually for our students while they're home over the summer. And up to the start of the school year. So we didn't collect our devices. All of our students, I think 2nd grade through 12th grade, have devices with them at home.
We have a reader who mentioned that her Kimberly Smith, who said that her her child has asthma. As for students who may be more compromised, how will the district handle that so that those people are either the risk is minimized toward people who may be immunocompromised?
Yeah, we will take those types of situations will be handled, I think, accordingly. I think we're going to get grace and from the State Department as it relates to attendance for those types of situations. So it'll be important for us to make sure that we are documenting that those students are out, but they are attending school virtually. That's why we want to offer the virtual option. I don't think it won't be allowable or permissible for a student to simply not just report to school and not then be a part of our continuing his or her education through the virtual format. But if there's a situation where a student has health concerns and documented health concerns, and they can't report to school because of the possibility of being compromised, then of course we're going to accommodate them in the most effective and efficient way we can. And right now that is again our virtual format that we will continue. That's why it's important to the listeners of the show. That's why it's important that we continue to work on strengthening the virtual infrastructure. I think if we stop working on perfecting the virtual infrastructure, we put ourselves at risk for not being prepared for these types of situations or any future situation that will require us not to report to school because of health concerns or disasters or anything like that.
Dr. Davis, we have time for just a couple more questions. One of them being just thinking more long term. I know that schools, education, every government agency is projected to take a budgetary hit from a reduced budget as a result of coronavirus. And I know that Richland too has a lot of pretty substantial bond projects in the works for the next 5-10 years or so. Do you project that this will affect the building new schools, HVAC repairs, capital? Do you project that this will affect any of these capital projects going forward the next 5-10 years?
No, I don't project that they'll have any impact on the capital projects. The bond allowed us to borrow the money to do the work, and so that should not have an impact on us being able to complete the projects that we've described in our facilities plan.
Okay. Well, those were about all the questions I had at the moment. Is there anything just before I let you go? Anything else you'd like to stress? Anything else you would like that I didn't ask you that you would like to address just before we let you go?
Yeah, I would just continue to say as I've always said, I'm very grateful and thankful to the Richland 2 community, to our parents and our students, our teachers have all been phenomenal during this time. They have demonstrated the things that we've asked, which is grit and grace. They have toughed through and worked through some tough times and some uncertain times. They have extended grace to one another, to our teachers, and our teachers to our students. And they've put the purpose over personal preferences, to remember what the purpose of what this work is about, which is achieving the mission of our school district, to prepare our students to be global citizens who are prepared to lead and excel in their chosen pathway. They've kept the mission the focus and put personal preferences aside. And I could not be more thankful to our community, to our board for their support. And we ask that we continue to work together in a partnership to make sure that our students achieve and have a premier educational experience. And so again, I tip my hat and I salute our family, our Richland 2 family, for doing a phenomenal job. And I thank you, Lucas, for this opportunity and platform to share a little bit about what we've done. And should you need me to do anything in addition to that, I'm open for that as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Davis. I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and I know you have to get on an 11 o'clock call. For everyone in the comments section, thank you so much for participating. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask me. There's a couple I saw in there. I will go through the comments section Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section or just email me at ldaprile@thestate.com, LDAPRILE@thestate.com. Thank you guys so much, and thank you for reading, and big thank you to Dr. Davis for doing this with us.